Dear brothers and sisters, today I will speak about the ecclesial dimension of contemplative prayer. But before that, we start with a prayer. Come, Holy Spirit, and help us to see Jesus in our life. Help us to follow him. Help us to adore him. Help us to see that he's always at work in his church, where he brings all of us together in order to give glory to our Heavenly Father. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. When Christians pray, we always pray as members of the church. In baptism, we have received the gift and grace of being inhabited by the triune God. Our personal prayer is always a participation in the dialogue of the Son with his Father. We are so united to the Son that he can use his prayer in order to speak with our Heavenly Father. Thanks to baptism, we are the temples of God. The mystery of the church has been internalized into our very being. The church is an interior reality in our life. This biblical and dogmatical background is also very important on the personal and pastoral level. Prayer is more grace and gift than achievement and result of our own effort. All is grace, Teresa of Lisieux said, and prayer is above all an immense grace. When we really realize this immense sign of God's mercy, our entire life tends to become a life of prayer. We can pray everywhere, in all circumstances of life. We can remain united to God always and everywhere. So we are invited to constant communion with the triune God who lives deep inside ourselves, in the innermost sanctuary of our soul. And we have to be at home in that sanctuary within ourselves. When we really try to receive this grace and become more and more aware of God's presence, prayer becomes more and more contemplative. Or as St. John of the Cross says, attention amorosa, loving awareness. The Lord is always aware of us, and we can echo this, being aware of him and his love and presence. The virtue of faith can grow gradually into contemplation. More and more, we can look upon God and everything existing with the very gaze of God himself. We can use his eyes to look upon him and upon ourselves. That's the gift of faith, to look upon God and everything with the eyes of God. We are invited to constant, prayerful communion with God. And this is not only a personal grace, it is something we receive as members of the church and on behalf of all the church and her salvific mission in the world. We are never isolated individuals. We are members of a community, a communion, Holy Church. The more we grow in prayer, thanks to the theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity, the more we grow into the innermost mystery of the church. We become church. We become the bride of Christ, our bridegroom, thanks to the saving and sanctifying love of him, our bridegroom. The universal vocation to holiness implies that all the members of the church are invited to this constant dialogue and relationship with the bridegroom. Contemplative prayer is the very atmosphere of the church. It's nothing strange, it's very natural. If we really live in the church, we will learn how to live in contemplative prayer, always united to Jesus the bridegroom, and through him to our Father. Contemplative prayer is meant for all the baptized. But unfortunately, very few of them know that they are invited to this transforming and mystical union of love with the bridegroom. As bride of Christ, anima ecclesiastica, an ecclesial soul, we would say in English perhaps, every Christian is meant to be fruitful for the church and her mission in the world. Contemplative prayer has a deep ecclesial dimension. Souls are saved, souls are sanctified, new life is born. This ecclesial dimension of contemplative prayer is very typical of Carmelite spirituality, especially so in the Teresian Carmel. But as a matter of fact, it's actually a common Christian insight, or it ought to be so. Every Christian who lives a profound and sincere life of prayer will become fruitful for the church in one way or the other. As Christians, we are not isolated individuals, but members of the mystical body of Christ. We are always united to him, and he is always at work deep inside in our heart. We are united to him because he has given his life for us. As Christians, each one of us becomes the bride of Christ. Through our loving, contemplative union with the bridegroom, our entire life and prayer is so united to him that he can use it for his mystery of salvation. He can use everything in us for his work of salvation and redemption. Bride and bridegroom are one, totally united. From this perfect union of love, new life is born. And we all are called to take part in this perfect, personal, unique union of love with Christ, our bridegroom. The first point is about Teresa of Jesus, Teresa of Avila, her reform of Carmel on behalf of the reform of the church. Saint Teresa of Jesus tells her in her way of perfection how much she suffered when she heard about what the Lutherans had done in France in order to damage the unity of the church. Actually, it was not the Lutherans, but the Calvinists. Teresa was not so informed about the various parts of the reform of the church. And here in Sweden we have to underline that Teresa misunderstood. It was not the fault of the Lutherans, but of the Calvinists. But she had also heard about all the souls in America who didn't know Christ and were in danger of being lost. Some of her brothers went to America with the conquistadors, so she was very well informed about what was happening in the Americas of her time. At the same time, she realized that her own spiritual life in the monastery of the Incarnation in Avila was a very lukewarm life. She didn't take her spiritual life seriously. She spent more time speaking with the benefactors in the parlor than with the Lord in the choir. So she felt that God wanted her to do something for the church in need, and at the same time for the Carmelite order that was also in need of a spiritual revival. She felt that so many souls, so many human beings needed the saving grace of the Lord. They needed the help of the church in Europe, in America, but also in her own monastery of the Incarnation. So she felt that she had to convert in order to help the church to come closer to all those souls in need. And that implied her own conversion to a deeper life of prayer. She wanted to institute a new way of living the Carmelite charism on behalf of the church. In a certain way, she wanted to return to the beginning of the church, because every reform in the church is a new beginning, a return to the beginning of the church, when Christ gathered the apostles around himself. A community of 12 sisters and their prioress should live a secluded, contemplative life in poverty, inspired and motivated by apostolic zeal. She told her sisters, "You are soldiers fighting with the only weapons of penance and prayer for the salvation of mankind, for the salvation of souls." Somehow, this should be a female reflection of the community of the 12 apostles around Jesus. In her way of perfection, she tells us, all the sisters should be occupied in prayer for those who were defending the church, the preachers and the learned men who defended her. The sisters had a special charism to live in prayer in order to help the church to come closer to all those souls in need, wherever they were, however far away they were. So it's very interesting to see that the main intention of the reform of Saint Teresa was ecclesial and apostolic. In her vision, contemplative prayer and life had an intrinsic value for the church and her mission, for the conversions of mankind. Through the contemplative life of the sisters, they could help the church, just as brave soldiers defending the church, using the sacred weapons of prayer and penance. By their deep prayerful union with Christ, the bridegroom, the sisters could become fruitful for the church and the redemption of humankind. They were supposed to surrender totally to the bridegroom and his task as Redeemer. Their daily task was to adore the bridegroom, to look upon him, and thus be transformed by his love, to see that they had the mission to help him in his task of redemption, in his task of converting souls to him. By growing closer and closer to him in prayer, they could become more and more fruitful for the church. Even if they never saw all these souls in need, they were close to them because they were close to the bridegroom, who had this immense pity and mercy for all those souls. In her spiritual relations, she tells us, when I look at the great needs of the church, which afflict me so much, it seems to me ridiculous to be distressed about anything else. The one important thing was to serve the bridegroom, to give her life in his service, and help him to really become the Redeemer of each and sundry. So Teresa of Jesus reminds all of us that we are called to the deep, nuptial and transforming union to Christ the bridegroom. In our prayer, we are always united to him, and when we are united to him, we are also united to his work of redemption. We are invited to grow gradually in contemplative prayer up to the final transformation. It's a real grace to realize that we can always grow in spiritual life. We can always become more contemplative wherever we live. Even if we don't live in a contemplative monastery, we can grow in this contemplative prayer thanks to transforming grace. So we are all called upon to grow and grow and grow and never stop, because the Lord has opened the spiritual marriage with him for us. We know that the Church and Christ are always totally one in this spiritual marriage. But this is also open to us. Our final aim here on earth is to become totally transformed so that we can give honor and glory to God through everything we are and do. And especially through contemplative prayer, we grow closer and closer to the bridegroom. And this is not only a personal grace and gift. There is always a deep ecclesial dimension of contemplation. Teresa helps us to realize, and this is also a very important motivation to be true to our prayer life, that we help the world, we help the Church, we help so many human beings to come closer to God through this hidden way of life that is prayer. The mystery of the Church becomes more and more incarnate in each one of us when we come closer to Christ. Because when we come closer to Christ, we come closer to the Church. We become more and more what we are, the Church, the bride of the bridegroom. All our life becomes a loving offering of ourselves and a wholehearted service to him and his work of redemption in and through the Church. Teresa founded her Dovecots, the monastery of her church, of her sisters, as a service for the mission of the Church. The reform of Carmel was meant as a service for the entire Church, for a reform of the Church. Ecclesia semper reformanda. The Church has always to be reformed, in all ages, in all situations, and we have to be reformed, converted, in order to help the Church to shine in her beauty as bride of Christ. The sisters of Teresa do not live their contemplative life for the sake of their own perfection. They want to show the perfection of the Church, the perfection of Christ, the perfection, the mutual perfection of bride and bridegroom. They offer everything for the Church and her apostolic mission. This is also the reason why contemplative monasteries are so cherished in the part of the world where the Church is beginning her mission. I know there are always bishops around in our general house asking for foundation of contemplative monastery of sisters, because that's a very important part in the mission of the Church. The hidden life in the monastery is a kind of help for the apostolic workers on the field. Contemplative prayer brings forth new life in the Church. And this insight became very evident for the entire Church when the younger sister of Teresa of Avila, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, was proclaimed patron saint of the missions at the side of Saint Francis Xavier. Contemplation and mission belong together. The hidden life of the Carmelite nun is an immense help for the mission of the Church. The contemplative prayer of each one of us helps the Church to be more Church, to make more true to her mission, to show herself as the perfect and beautiful bride of Christ, shining with mercy, with pity, with love for the entire world. The second point is about Teresa of the Child Jesus, to live in the heart of the Church. Saint Teresa is sometimes called the patroness of atheists, because who needs a patron saint more than them? Her life and spirituality show us God's longing for a universal salvation. God has an immense love for those who do not need him, as they say, who do not know him. But of course they need him more than anyone else. God's infinite and limitless love is very much alive. The merciful heart of Jesus is reflected in the heart of Saint Teresa and her longing for salvation for all the sinners and non-believers. She lived in the time of upcoming atheism, and she realized that Christ had died also for those who did not believe in him, who didn't want to believe or never had heard about him. The Church had a responsibility for their redemption as well. The Church has a universal vocation to help souls to be saved, to show them the real face of the loving God. And Teresa of Lisieux realized that her mission was to take part in this conversion of sinners and non-believers. The hidden, contemplative life of Carmel had the special vocation to show the mystical solidarity between saints and sinners. And we know that all saints are converted sinners, so they all know what it's all about. The notion of communion of saints implies that sinners and saints are brothers and sisters. Those who have come closer to God must help those who are far away. They have the responsibility to help the Lord to come closer to all those who need him. In the Church, sinners are transformed by God's grace in order to become saints. Teresa knew that God had saved her in advance from sin, without any merit of her own, in order to make it possible for her to be the little sister of all the sinners. Her little way is a special grace given to the Church in order to reach out to all those who remain far away from God, in order to show them God's desperate longing to redeem them. And in her contemplative prayer, Teresa really felt that she had this vocation to be the sister of all those who didn't know Christ, who didn't believe in him, who had turned away, who never discovered his love and compassion. Through her own experience of God's absence and total darkness, Teresa received the grace to participate in the redeeming experience of Jesus himself at Gethsemane. God felt far away. God had abandoned her. She didn't hear him, feel him, sense him. But still, this was also part of her contemplative prayer, a part of her faith life, that God was absent, but his absence can also be a kind of sacrament of his presence, because when he feels absent for us, we know that we long more and more for him. Her total incapacity to pray, her empty hands, show us the paradoxical and transforming power of contemplative prayer. In her hidden life, in the enclosure of Carmel, she really experienced the hidden God. But that's also the real God. The hidden God is the same God always. This experience helped her to understand from within how the non-believers experienced their life. In her, the compassionate heart of Jesus, the bridegroom, became incarnate. As his bride, she received the grace to share his longing, to save souls, to redeem all those who did not want to receive him, or did not know how to do so. Her dark night of the soul, that she experienced in her contemplative prayer, shows us the deep transforming force of faith. Faith as a theological virtue, uniting us to God, even in our poverty and utter darkness. So in contemplative prayer, we will always experience something of this darkness, this emptiness, this absence of God. But it always has this transforming force, helping us to be more eager that souls shall be saved than about our own comfort and feeling cozy in prayer. Teresa really identified herself with the heart of the church, the burning furnace longing for the salvation of souls, just as the Sacred Heart of Jesus. If the church, she says in her autobiography, were a body composed of different members, it couldn't lack the noblest of all. It must have a heart, and a heart burning with love. Teresa wanted to do everything for God, to do everything in the church, within the church. But she realized more than anyone else her total poverty and incapacity. At the same time, though, she was totally convinced of God's infinite mercy. She knew that her longings were not in vain, that she could be able to do everything for God if she found her place in the church, a place of contemplative prayer, a place of total surrender to Jesus, a place in the heart of the church. So Jesus offered her a place of honor, the heart of the church, where she could live in constant prayer for the salvation of each and sundry. Her hidden life and her hidden prayer because sometimes her prayer was so hidden that she didn't think that it existed at all, but it was there. So in the heart of the church, she could be experiencing Jesus' own longing for the salvation of humankind. I have found my vocation, she said, and my vocation is love. I had discovered where it is that I belong in the church, the niche God has appointed for me, to be nothing else than love, deep down in the heart of Mother Church. That is to be everything at once. My dream was not a dream after all. It was reality, utter reality. Even in the darkness, even in this difficult situation of non-prayer, she found the mystery of deep contemplative prayer. So here Teresa shows us the dynamical force of the theological virtue of hope that could make the dream of her come true. When we really live in hope, we can find that our deepest intentions, dreams come true, that Jesus answers our prayers in a very loving way. So Teresa was allowed to live in the heart of the church, to help the bridegroom, the Redeemer, to save souls, to help non-believers, to help sinners to come closer to Christ. This mystical experience of the true interiority of the church, the heart of the church, can help also us to reflect upon the very essence of the ecclesial mystery. We need a more spiritual ecclesiology in our secular world of today, when we are surrounded by non-believers. And sometimes we have to allow ourselves to say that they can be much better than we, more loving, more sacrificing, more sincere in their life. And then we long even more that they come close to Jesus, that they could be open to his love. So for all of us, it's really a task, an important task, to live in contemplative prayer in the heart of the church in order to give Jesus the possibility to come closer to all those in darkness who do not know him, or have forgotten him, or never discovered him. Saint Teresa of Lisieux, Saint Teresa of the Infant Jesus, was a providential gift to the church in the time of upcoming atheism. She reminded us that we are all the children of God, and that he wants to save all his children, and that we can do something in order to help him. Today, we see the results of this situation very clearly, that more and more people around us have not met Jesus, and that makes our mission very important. And our contemplative prayer is part of our mission, to live so closely united to Jesus that he can use us for his mission of saving the world. If we want to be useful for the church, Teresa shows us her little hidden way of contemplation as a very fruitful way. The third point, St. John of the Cross, the gift of pure love. In his Cantico and Llama, St. John of the Cross uses the spousal terminology in order to show us the infinite dignity of our human reality. We are invited to the closest possible union of love with the bridegroom, Jesus Christ. The human person, the bride, can be more and more transformed by faith, hope, and charity through her relationship with the spouse. The higher degree of charity she has reached, the more consequences will follow for the entire organism of the Church. Growth in holiness and contemplative is not only a matter of personal perfection. As baptized, we all live our personal history of salvation and sanctification within the Church, or even inside the heart of the Church. When the bride has been totally transformed, thanks to the development of the theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity, she belongs totally to the bridegroom and his work of redemption. Those who are in this state obtain everything they want, St. John of the Cross says in his Llama de Amor Viva. In his immense humility, the bridegroom will always listen to his bride, who unites her prayer for salvation of souls to his burning desire for the same aim. So here we really see the fruitfulness of contemplative prayer. When St. John of the Cross speaks about the bride, this implies, just as in the entire mystical tradition, the Church, the single person, and Our Lady. The bride can be the Church, the single soul, or Our Lady. When he comments on the 30th stanza of his spiritual canticle, he says, "This verse most appropriately refers to Christ and the Church, for in it the Church, the bride of Christ, addresses him saying, 'Let us weave garlands,' understanding by garlands all the holy souls engendered by Christ in the Church. Each holy soul is like a garland adorned with the flowers of virtues and gifts, and all of them together form a garland for the head of Christ, the bridegroom. So the beauty of each perfect and holy soul gives glory to the bridegroom. We are called to be beautiful, but not for our own sake, but for the sake of the bridegroom, who through his beauty can transform the world and convert those who do not believe, those who are far away. Here the Church is very active, but always in close union to Christ, in order to foster holy souls. It also shows us the intimate connection between redemption and glorification. The bride, whether it be the Church or the single soul or Our Lady, is called to give glory to the bridegroom by being a wonderful, beautiful garland. Thus, the works and prayers of these souls always produce their effect. Such was the prayer and work of Our Lady, the most glorious Virgin. The joint glory of Christ and the Church will be total when they have all been adorned with all the garlands, that is, all the elect. So this text also shows us the eschatological plenitude when Christ will be all in all. And in our contemplative prayer, we can get a little glimpse, a tiny little glimpse of this mystery, the mystery of heaven, when all the elect give glory to God. And that helps us to have this constant motivation to be true, to be sincere in our prayer life. Every single Christian is called to be totally transformed by divine grace. This implies that everyone is invited to grow in contemplative prayer and thus become fruitful for the Church and her apostolate. St. John of the Cross always defended the hidden contemplative life of the Carmelite nuns. According to him, it offered the nuns an ideal atmosphere in order to grow closer to the Lord and receive the gift of pure love. And this notion is very, very important. In his spiritual canticle, he explains why. For a little of this pure love is more precious to God and the soul, and more beneficial to the Church, even though it seems one is doing nothing, than all these works put together. This pure love is badly needed for the Church and her mission in order to transmit redemption. Therefore, the Church, always and everywhere, needs the hidden contemplative life, the contemplative prayer, where we can receive as a pure gift, the pure gift of perfect love of Jesus. His perfect love can shine upon us and transform us so that we too come closer and closer to this pure love. If this pure love is missing in the Church, something of the essence of the ecclesial mystery is lost. That's why the Church always needs to be reformed, to be converted, to surrender totally to the bridegroom. Mary Magdalene, even though she was accomplishing great good by her preaching, St. John of the Cross says, and would have continued to do so, hid in the desert for 30 years in order to surrender truly to his love. It seemed to her, after all, that by such retirement she would obtain much more because of the notable benefit and gain a little of this love that brings pure love to the Church. So finally, dear brothers and sisters, we have come to the conclusion. Development of a Carmelite contemplative ecclesiology. And that's really a question to you and to all of us. These three Carmelites who have been declared doctors of the Church, and that's a very important remark, show us something of the common interest for all the members of the Church. They have a message to the entire Church. And when they speak about the impact of contemplative prayer for the Church, they do so according to the Carmelite Catechism, but they speak to the entire Church. Does this perhaps imply that there could be a special Carmelite ecclesiology? The Carmelite vision of the Church concentrates evidently on the innermost reality of the Church. This accent can be very important, consoling for those who feel alone and empty in the secular world of today, as well as for those who look upon the Church just as an institution among many others. The contemplative gaze upon the Church offered us by these three Carmelite doctors of the Church can help our contemporaries to find healing in the motherly and life-giving womb of Church, our Holy Mother. In the society of today, even many Christians have a very critical and rather negative look upon the Church. And sometimes we have to understand it. When you hear about all the abuses and those terrible things happened in Canada, people get a very critical look upon the church. And that's why a reform is always needed. And I think that our Carmelite saints can help us to discover the real mystery of the church. The more contemplative vision of these Carmelites can be helpful for many who need to discover the real and profound mystery of the church. Of course, other Carmelites can add their own accents to this vision. Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity, who wanted to be a laudum gloriae, to be praise and glory to God, shows us that adoration and glorification of the Holy Trinity is the very atmosphere of the church, the very atmosphere of contemplative prayer. In a posthumous note she wrote, "I bequeath to you this vocation which was mine in the bosom of the church militant, and which I shall fulfill henceforth unceasingly in the church triumphant, a praise of glory of the Blessed Trinity." Another saint of ours, Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, Edith Stein, through her life and prayer, as well as through her martyrdom, strengthened the bond between Israel and the church. In one of her texts, she speaks about Queen Esther, symbol of Israel, who comes to the priories of Carmel, symbol of the church, in order to ask for help and intercession in the time of persecution. So Edith Stein can help us to see that the contemplative prayer life of Carmel somehow is the continuation of the prayer of the synagogue. The church, the new Israel, is meant to bring divine help and salvation to everyone. Through her intercession, God's mercy and love can change our hearts and the history of the world. Finally, a more hidden, unknown Carmelite to many of you, Francisco Palau, who lived both as a hermit and an apostle, has added a very special accent to this ecclesial dimension of prayer. He looks upon himself as the bridegroom of his beloved bride, Amada. He lives in a personal relationship with the church. He said, "I live and I will live for the church. I live and I will die for her." His prayer was a dialogue with the church, where he found Christ and his neighbors in communion. He shows us that there are several ways of being an anima ecclesiastica, an ecclesial soul in the Carmelite tradition. He shows us that we too can find that when our prayer becomes more and more contemplative, it also becomes more and more ecclesial for the church, for the conversion of the church, of the world, and all of us. Dear brothers and sisters, I thank you for your patience. I pray for you that you will also discover your place in the church, that your personal prayer can be fruitful for the church and help people to come closer to the church. So may God Almighty bless all of you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.